Hello, I'm Soap and welcome to Dress Up Dispatch, and today I'm going to be talking about the Winx Reboot. I know that this episode isn't directly about a dress up game, but since I'm a Royale High player and Royale High was based off Winx originally, that's why I'm going to be talking about this, and because I had reacted to an episode before on my channel. So if you want to watch my reaction to the first episode of season 5 of Winx, then that's out there. I did also record another 2 of that season, but copyright's crazy, so that's why I'm going to be making an episode on this instead of reacting, because originally I did film myself reacting, but copyright did not go, This is also a bit crazy because when I started rewatching Winx, because I used to watch it when I was really young, it was around this time last year, just after Christmas, so alright, yeah, and when this comes out it will be Christmas, so Merry Christmas if you celebrate that. So let's talk about the reboot then. So it got exposed for using AI, allegedly I guess, because I'm not sure if this is actually true, but I'm pretty sure it may be true. It may be true. And I don't agree with the use of AI in creative fields or in most places really. For a lot of reasons I could get into that, but I'm sure you understand why using AI is a bad thing. I've written out 7 pages of notes, and I'm going to be basically saying what happened in each episode and sharing my opinions on that, because of copyright I couldn't react, so this is my version of reacting to it by sharing exactly what I was thinking at the time. And at the end I will say a final statement on the whole series and how it compares to old series, and kind of how it links to Royale High. So it's not actually called the Winx Reboot, it's called Winx Club The Magic Is Back, which I find a bit ironic considering the use of AI, not much magic involved there really. But yeah, let's get straight into the first episode. So first things first, they kind of all look extremely chopped. The reason I rewatched Winx was for nostalgia, so the first 2 seasons were peak for me, and then after that the art style changed. To be fair, it got better, but it didn't feel as nostalgic for me. So I feel this series doesn't feel nostalgic, or doesn't make me feel, it doesn't remind me of old Royale High because it's in 3D, which I know that's what the studio does now, so yeah. And the outfits themselves, not very good. I don't know much about fashion, and that's crazy considering this podcast is called Dress Up Dispatch, but yeah. I swear they used to take inspiration from actual fashion designers, now they have pretty basic outfits. I also found it weird that Kiko, so the little bunny, wasn't really included, and that there was 3D assets that felt out of place of a diary that looks like Kiko, so Kiko does not exist. I love that little bunny. Next I said 16th birthday chosen one bullshit, which yeah, I found. So the first episode is basically a recreation of the first episode of season 1 of Winx, but just weirder and more stereotypical. She's wow, I have magic powers, but I just found it it's a weird change from season 1, because in season 1 she used to be really interested in fairies, so she was happy about being a fairy, but in this one she's oh, why am I having fire powers randomly? But yeah, also her dad's chopped unbelievably. And then there's that scene with Stella fighting the ogre, which was in season 1 again. This whole season is basically a mix of season 1 and 2, which I said were the peak seasons for me, but the pacing's really off in this episode, but I'll talk about that in a bit. But Flora's also there as well, which I found interesting. I'm glad they're not sidelining her, but yeah, not much else to say about that. And I said there's some mild comments about Stella's ring, and it's not even an important plot point throughout the whole series, which is kind of upset me, because I feel the whole of season 1 it was really unrelated to Bloom's dragon flame. That was more of a season 2 thing. The first few episodes of season 1 they were focused on getting Stella's ring, and then they realised it was bad. But in this series it's kind of a mild inconvenience. But I'll get into that later. She doesn't tell her parents about being a fairy, which is a bit in the first season they basically dropped her off at the school. They just kind of kidnapped her in this one, which is a bit odd. So the new like magic school, it looks like pretty good, but it doesn't look like Enchantix, which was, if you're new to Royal High, you won't know what it is, but it is the Royal High realm which was based off Winx. So that made me mildly upset, but like I said, it looks good, so it's fine. For some reason, witches and fairies go to the same school. Quote unquote, I said Stella is low-key racist towards witches. So basically, in the early episodes, they make it out that there's like some sort of divide between fairies and witches, and everyone's low-key being rude about the witches. I was like, this feels like prejudice, this feels like discrimination. And then Flora will occasionally say, oh, not all witches are bad. I was like, guys, what's the stereotyping going on here? So I found it really odd that they would make an environment where witches were being discriminated against, and then make the main villains literally witches. I mean, the main antagonists for the first episodes at least. But like the discrimination towards witches is more of like an only early episode thing, and then they just kind of ignore it after that. The Winx Club all live together, which I think this is probably a good idea, so they can like have more interactions. That makes more sense. Icy bumps into Bloom, and then she reads her aura, which is an interesting ability which kind of came out of nowhere. And it kind of sets up it automatically sets up like a rivalry, because, you know, fire and ice. She's like, ooh, it's a fire fairy. And then we're told that there was a battle between light and dark. And I was like, why does this happen off screen? This is the reason why, like, the witches' school was destroyed, and why there were the fairies. Which I found was weird for this to happen off screen, considering in the first season, it was the witches' school against the fairy school. And then the Tricks are sabotaging Bloom for like no reason, just because Icy had some bad vibes. Okay, quote unquote, I said Ginger Guy is obviously Bloom's brother. His name's Damien. He's like a new character which they introduced for some reason to give like some sort of twin plot. I actually did predict that they were related because it's obvious they're both gingers, but like I said, I'll get into that. Damien literally is rude for no reason. Like, he's just really angsty, and it's like giving Ribbon, but like more irritating. Then there's some cute evil llamas, and Bloom is literally stupid. She lets them free despite being told not to. Okay, the next thing I wrote is, I'm glad that the Tricks are proper villains rather than a random old man's sidekick. I was wrong about that, because if you've watched it, you know that they are a random old man's sidekick, but he hasn't been introduced in this episode yet. And the Sky and Brandon swap plotline is no longer there. If you don't remember, in the first season, Sky and Brandon swapped names. So Brandon was pretending to be a prince, and Sky was pretending not to be. For like, I don't know, security reasons. And the specialists were actually being useful, which is crazy. They were kind of just there for no reason in most of the seasons. Sky calls Damien kid, and I low-key thought they were the same age, so what's up with that? And the transformations were kind of underwhelming. At least their designs are still glittery, like the OG Winx. The Tricks send monsters to Earth, and this causes the introduction of Mitzi, who is Bloom's bully on Earth. Like, I don't know why the pacing of the first episode is diabolical, because she's on Earth, she then witnesses a fight, goes into school, experiences that for a bit, and then goes into like some barn, causes some trouble, then she's in the woods, then she's back on Earth and we meet her bully. I feel like this could have been separated into multiple episodes. Like, too much happened in this episode. I know they're trying to introduce stuff, but it didn't feel very good. Also, like, Bloom locks Mitzi in like a toilet. It probably seems homoerotic to Mitzi because she has no idea there's monsters there, as if like Bloom just locked her in here. It's a bit weird. Stella makes a portal, even though it's like canon that she sleeps through classes. So like, this whole season they make so many portals, so I was like, okay, I know you didn't want to show them going anywhere, so you just made them able to do portals. Okay, episode 2 review. So the first thing I wrote was Harry Potter Sorting Hat and witches are automatically bad. That's kind of the overview of it. Because basically Faragonda and basically the headmistresses are like, you will have like, we will determine if you're a fairy or a witch. And then Bloom's like, what? Well, if I'm a witch, that means I'm really evil and stuff. Which makes you think, like, I thought why are we making the main characters literally prejudiced? Like, we know that witches have the ability to do good as well. And the Tricks are working for a mystery man. We don't know who he is at the moment. Plus, they're not even interested in Stella's ring. Like, yeah, I've talked about that already. The Winx Club are kind of sidelined, and there's a main trio formed of Bloom, Flora, and Stella. This isn't really a problem beyond episode 3, but like, throughout the first 2 episodes, it's like, okay, what happened to the club? There's just a few of you. For some reason I said transformed a dog into Grimace. I don't remember what happened there, but something happened there. The specialists go to Althea for lessons too, which, like, wow, I guess they had to put everything in the room because they couldn't make multiple different schools. That's what I wrote down. I know that they made Red Fountain, which made me think, why don't they have a witch school? Like, there was no point of getting rid of it, considering they literally have scenes still in the old, like, witch tower, so I really don't get that plot point. And then Diaspro, I have things to talk about this. I hate the evil other woman trope. Because, like, what do you mean I'm meant to root for the homewrecker? Diaspro is so unbelievably annoying and we're meant to not root for her, but I just hate the trope of, oh, this poor man, he's dating an evil woman and he wants to date this other nicer girl. Like, I don't know, just break up. Like, why are we putting the blame on the woman? Like, this causes stress for Bloom because she's like, I literally don't want a homewreck. And this guy's literally still flirting with her. She's flirting back, but like, Diaspora has the right to be like mad, not gonna lie. But like I said, Diaspora is like really like comically annoying. They haven't actually said it in this season, but I swear they're like in a arranged engagement or whatever because they're both royalty. But this isn't even mentioned in this. It's just like, so we're meant to believe that Sky is staying with Diaspora and likes Bloom. Like, why would he do that? And why are we like, oh, it's the woman's fault, she's so evil. Like, I don't know, just break up. Like, they haven't even mentioned that it's to do with his, like, status and stuff. Anyways. Also, she's chopped. Like I said, the Winx Club actually being friends until Bloom uses witch powers. Oh right, because the Tricks, they're, like, making Bloom think she is a witch. So she's like upset because, I don't know, they have random beef with her at this point. So like Icy's like, if you want to know your truth, go to this random mirror room to see if you're a witch. And then they basically rig it because Darcy used her like illusion powers. She's like, oh, I'm a witch, I'm evil. Like, I don't know why they would introduce like the plotline of witches being like mildly discriminated against if the main characters were literally going to be like rude about it. But anyways, after this, Bloom wants to go home because she thinks she's a witch and then, like, she's evil because of that. So the Tricks are like, yeah, you should probably go home, and they make a portal for her. And then they attack her when she's, like, alone in her school to steal her powers. And then she's saved by Robin, who is Faragonda's assistant and a specialist. Like, this whole time I thought specialist was just, like, limited to being men because all the witches and the fairies are literally, like, women, and then the specialists are men. But to be fair, they had Damien becomes a warlock in this episode, which, like, a man witch. So I guess this isn't a girls only school and the specialist school isn't a boys only school. But like, why is there like one exception per each team? Bloom accidentally sets on fire and then her dad like has to put her out because he's a firefighter. And then she tells her parents the truth and they're like, oh, we always knew, which was like crazy thing to hide from your daughter. But yeah, my next thing is there's so many portals. Like I said, just random amount of portals. I also wrote Damien is annoying. That's a common thread throughout this whole series. In the Sorting Hat thing, all the alt people become witches. It's like, okay, so are we judging off fashion style? I don't know what's going on here. Anyways, Bloom is a fairy, like, shocker. Damien's a warlock, I already talked about that. Flora likes him, which is like, so I guess no Helia then. But to be fair, Helia was announced in a later season, and I wasn't really attached to their relationship. I mean, it was cute, but like, there was like barely any drama there. Actually, I stopped watching in like 3 episodes into season 5 of Winx, but there was like some relationship drama there. But yeah, I guess they gave her a new, like, man, I guess. And the Tricks literally get no consequences for their actions, even though the headmistress of the witches, she's literally finding any excuse to expel them, the Winx, for some reason. Episode 3, the ogre steals Stella's ring with like no problem at all from the dorm. Which, like, okay, if Stella's ring was going to be important, we could have made it like more of a big deal and make the Tricks be like, wow, I really want to take this ring. Because it was like briefly mentioned in episode 1. But like where Stella was like, oh, my ring's important, then never mentioned again. And then we kind of introduced to what the ring actually does, because Bloom doesn't know how to control her powers, and Stella's like, oh, maybe we could use my ring, it could be used as an amplifier. And then that's how they realise that the ring is missing. So Icy tries to steal the power from Stella's ring and it doesn't work, it literally like burns her. Cloud Tower still exists, it's just in ruins though, I've already said that, and that literally just reminded me that the Witch's Tower is called Cloud Tower. They really just dropped the whole season 1 plot, which to be fair, it is a reboot. They don't have to do the same plot, that would be boring for like old watchers, and this is definitely for a new audience. It's like a very big merge of like events that have happened across like mostly the first 3 seasons. So there's no longer like the Tricks being the main villains who like lead a war against the other schools, but there are things that happened from season 1 that do happen in this season. Then Bloom hears Daphne for the first time in this episode. A book falls on Bloom about Domino, so they're introducing her whole like childhood plot, which if I remember this right, like all the Dragonflame stuff happened in season 2, not season 1. So it's like, and this whole series is very Dragonflame focused. So it is a bit like weird. And because I feel like the only reason why they put witches in the same school as the fairies, the writers as like a plot device, was for the Tricks to like intimidate them in class like bullies, because they literally act like high school bullies in class, like, wow, you're so stupid. And I was like, I guess they'd always tried to get under Bloom's skin for like no reason at all, really. And Cloud Tower looks like the same, but now it's grey. Like before it used to be like a very maroon colour, and that was kind of, I don't actually remember the villain of the first season, but like all the monsters were like the same colour as Cloud Tower, and it was like everything was very similar. But now it just kind of looks like an old castle, really. The Winx, like, they literally sneak into Cloud Tower so easily and get the ring back. But then they see this like little creature in a cage, and like, bro, this is obviously a trap. And it is, because that's like the ogre that works for the Tricks. And yeah, they free it and it attacks them, but like it's not that serious. And they use their powers without transforming, so like that made me think, what's the actual point of transforming if they can use their powers without? Because that's always been such like a problem for them, because when they're in combat they're like, oh, I need to transform, and the monster's just like, nah, we don't have time for that. And this is the first time in the series that they all transform, excluding Bloom, but she does transform later in this episode. Just like, it took 3 episodes for them to transform, which is like the main thing that they're meant to do. Like, the Tricks are too OP at this point in the season. Like, Icy's ice is too powerful for the Winx. Like, even for Stella, who literally has like sun powers which could melt ice, but for some reason that doesn't work. Like, were they always this weak in season 1? I don't know. Bloom transforms, and there's a very underwhelming defeat of the Tricks. And finally, they actually call themselves the Winx Club. But for some reason, like, Bloom comes up with a name and she's like, yeah, we should be called the Winx because the Tricks are called the Tricks. Like, in season 1 this is very much linked to her like obsession with fairies, like she had come up with Winx before knowing she was a fairy. But in this one she's like, well, it's similar enough, and these are our ops, so we should be the good versions. Which, yeah, that makes sense narratively, but like it's a bit tense because it's probably why the writers chose those names, but like it's just a bit underwhelming. Faragonda mentions the Dragonflame for the first time in this season. The evil man in question is introduced, and by this I mean basically every season of Winx, the Tricks work for like a man. Like, why don't they work for themselves? So it's like the same formula over and over again. A new evil man is the antagonist and the Tricks work underneath him. And he's called Vexius this time. And the Tricks say he's so gonna double cross us, nor if we double cross him first. So they have like a bit of autonomy here, but they don't actually end up betraying him officially in the actual season. So yeah. Throughout the season, they like mistrust him so much, but they still like are at his beck and call. So episode 4, Darcy likes Riven, and we've never seen them interact like in this season. I'm not mad about this because Darcy did like Riven in the OG, but they haven't even interacted, and they don't interact in this like at all. Like she gets mildly jealous of Amuser occasionally, but like Riven hasn't even like turned up. They kind of got rid of the Riven x Darcy plotline, which was when Riven used to work for the Tricks. Like that doesn't happen, so I don't know how she got interested in him. But we finally understand why they're working for Vexius. They want a staff to get to the Omega Dimension. No idea why they want to get to the Omega Dimension, but if you've watched Winx, that's where like all the prisoners are trapped. So probably for power or something, for the Dragon Flame. So Vexius wants them to get the Dragon Flame for him, because for some reason he can't do it himself. Vexius wants to use Damien as a spy, and he doesn't have like strong powers. I also said his existence gives me the ick, because like his lines, he makes me cringe, and I realise this is probably not meant for my age demographic. So yeah, and then the specialists are teaching the fitness class for some reason, and Diaspora is watching in the bushes, and then Damien's also spying, and she's like, "You're such a creep," as if she wasn't doing the same thing. And Damien likes Flora. And I feel like at this point the Winx Club are more of a club now. They seem like actual friends at this point, which is like, okay, finally it's not just like, oh, Bloom's the main character. I mean, throughout the whole season it's always like, oh, Bloom, she's so powerful. Which I get that you have to have a main character, but like, it's called the Winx Club, not the Bloom Club. So basically, what they were training for was like this kind of like challenge they had to do. So they have to do a bunch of physical challenges and get a trophy, and then the Winx are split into groups of 2. Bloom and Flora are teamed up, and the Tricks switch their trophy with Damien, so he's just kind of in this bubble. So they choose to save Damien despite the trophy not being there, and then they fail because of that, because they didn't get the trophy, and because the rules of the like challenge was like you could basically do anything during this challenge to win. So yeah. But then Faragonda's like, oh, but they chose the right decision by saving him, so they actually end up passing anyways. Then later, Bloom and Flora see Damien talking to Vexius, and then at the end of the episode, Damien calls Vexius father, so daddy issues confirmed, I guess. Okay, now episode 5. The Winx want to go to Magixia, which is the main city where they want to go shopping. Then they're stopped by Griselda because Stella doesn't finish off her part of the homework. But then Robin lets them go. Like I said, Damien has daddy issues. Riven X Muser is introduced. Darcy wants to attack Muser because, like I said, she's jealous. But instead, the Tricks form a plan to separate the Winx. Damien wants to use a fire-eating salamander to steal Bloom's power, which, like, yeah, that's pretty smart. And for some reason, the Tricks make the salamander big, ruining Damien's plan. Like, they don't have any good plans. Like, oh, maybe we should. Their plan is always, let's separate them and attack them. Like, what? Then Darcy uses an illusion of sky to lure Bloom away. The headmistresses save the day, and all the Winx's powers are sealed as punishment for like getting involved in this. Damien hears the Winx talking like good about him, and then he gains his fire powers. Episode 6. They go on a magic camping trip without magic because they don't have magic, obviously. So throughout this episode, basically Bloom's like, oh, because I'm on Earth and I have just recently got magic, just follow my lead. So they feed a monster instead of fighting it, and they do a bunch of stuff without using powers. I'm like, I personally like this plotline because in so many battle scenes, they're just so, even though like most of their class scenes in like most seasons, they're learning about like physical defense. They're not good at it. They get like beat up by like random monsters when they're not using their powers, which is like, guys. So Damien and Trix team up. Like I said, Bloom carries camping. Quote unquote, I said Tekla is in her autism era because they really doubled up her autism in this like series, which, to be fair, I feel like it gives the character more depth. It is heavily stereotypical. They haven't outright said that she is autistic, so like I can't really say anything about that, but it's obvious. And it's actually a thing that she struggled, like she's not very happy with. But the Winx are very nice to her about it, so like overall there's a nice message about that. I was like, oh, she's low-key relatable, because like when they wanted to go shopping, she was like, I do not want to go shopping because there's so many people. I was like, that's so real. And then she's kind of in the corner during camping because like this is pretty awkward. Like there's a lot of people and she doesn't want to talk to them. She doesn't want to talk to the Winx because it's overwhelming social situation. And Bloom's like, we're not going to judge you. So yeah, it's dealt with pretty nicely, I guess. Then Musa sings a song around the campfire, like solidifying her like attachment to music, which isn't shocking considering her name is Musa and she is a music fairy. For some reason I said Tekna writes fanfic, but I think it was because she was like to someone, if you don't, it must have been Stella. She was like to Stella, if you don't get with Brandon, I am 100%, there's 90, she said like there's a high percent that I'm going to write ship fic, which was like, that's crazy. Then they basically have a lot of boy talk. Flora likes Damien, Bloom likes Sky, Stella likes Brandon, like we all know this if you've watched Winx before. Then I said Sky thinks of Bloom, because I think he's like on a date with desperately thinks of Bloom, which is like, okay, interesting. So the Tricks plan to use Damien's fire powers to like cause some havoc or something, but then Damien fails to use his powers because he's thinking of Flora. The Tricks attack the Winx, and because the Winx don't have magic, they fight back without magic. I forgot to mention, basically they were being watched by Robin, but then she gets frozen by Icy. But then when Robin gets unfrozen, she alerts the specialists, and they defeat the Tricks, and their powers are getting back. Vexius also has beef with Flora because she's like finding the good in Damien or whatever. Okay, episode 7. Tricks get like actually punished for once, so their magic is sealed away, and the headmistress is basically their adopted mother. She's like, well, not really, she's like, I took you in even though you're like basically evil. And she's laying them off like on everything, even though they're just like attacking innocent students for no reason over and over again. Which, like, okay, plot armor I guess. It's announced that Musa's gonna have a concert, and Aisha can dance. Unrelated to the concert, but yeah. Aisha talks about how she shouldn't dance because she's a princess, and her parents think it's like unlikely for a person of her status to be dancing, especially hip-hop, which, interesting plot I guess. This was a thing that happened in the OG series. Oh, I forgot to mention, I'm so glad Aisha's in the first season, because it felt so odd when they introduced her, because she had to kind of become one with the group, and she felt like very on the outs. So I'm glad she's originally in the group. And I'm glad that they made her powers less like ambiguous, because before she used to make like random pink stuff and then she suddenly became a water fairy. So this is a plot that happened before, but it happened in like a lot later season. And a lot of like the family dramas of the Winx are covered in this season, which doesn't really, like, it takes like a few seasons to cover some of them in the OG one. So they are trying to stick to the original lore basically, but different like challenges and antagonists, which I don't really care about because that's a kind of a minor part, even though that's the main plot. Because every season the same thing happens basically, that's why I haven't continued past season 5. Anyways, Aisha's parents are going to visit, and she does not want anyone to tell them about her being able to dance. Vexius wants to kidnap Bloom, so Damien lures her, and then Vexius turns her into evil Bloom, which I found really underwhelming because there was a really long lead up to her becoming evil Bloom in the second season, I'm pretty sure. There was a whole grooming plot line in the original series between her and like her teacher, and then he kidnaps her, and then she gets turned into evil Bloom in the OG, which really crazy honestly, but he just kind of really easily turns her evil by like, I don't know, using his magic. And then she has the evil outfit, which was like what she looks like slightly, but she's slightly alt and has a blue streak in her hair. Very underwhelming outfit because her evil outfit was low-key cunty in the original season. Evil Bloom exposes that Aisha dances to her parents, which is like, okay, didn't know this just made you rude. And the Tricks are basically told to teach Bloom how to be evil, but they don't really do anything. They just kind of hang out with her and say, oh, I like her more evil. Then Bloom roasts Sky, which kind of like ruins their relationship for a little bit. Bloom calls the Tricks wannabes, which they don't like her anymore at this point. This all happens like within a few minutes. Then there's the evil Bloom transformation, which it's literally the same as her normal transformation outfit, but like slightly darker shade of blue. At least the glitter's still there, but like nothing can beat the OG designs, but that's probably because of nostalgia. But it also makes a lot more sense why there was a like casual evil Bloom outfit and a like proper transformation one. Bloom unleashes a dragon flame for the first time, and the Winx and Bloom fight. The headmistresses have like a slight suspicion about Vexius being back. Then in the headmistress's office, they all circle Bloom and share their good memories with her, which de-evilizes her. And it actually kind of shows that the Winx Club like actually talked to each other and became like proper friends, because it showed moments as like, oh, they're low-key friending, which made me feel a lot better since episode 1 was like diabolical. Vexius blames his failure on the Tricks, for like, even though he was the one who made her evil, like the Tricks, to be fair, the Tricks didn't do anything, but like, what were they meant to do? And he plans to now deal with the Winx personally, which like, why weren't you doing this the whole time? I know he didn't want to be exposed, but like there's a few episodes in. Aisha's parents catch her dancing, then Faragonda and the Winx convince them that this is a good thing. Which, yeah, a bit weird that they find dancing to be weird, like a bad thing to do, like unbecoming of a princess or whatever, but like I said, it's an OG plotline. Then episode 8, which is Muse's concert episode. I don't remember the exact episode or the exact season, but there is a season where Muse's like family lore is dropped, and it's probably one of the like best episodes, most memorable ones. And it's when like her whole mother lore is dropped, but in this series it's not really, I mean, it's talked about, but there isn't like the good visuals. We don't get to see Muse's mothers sing and die and stuff. We just get told that she is kind of dead, so it is underwhelming in comparison to the OG videos, but it's containing the same lore basically. The Winx have new concert outfits. Then Bloom's like, oh, my relationship with Sky is like kind of ruined, and he won't answer any of his texts with her. So she's like, oh, can a specialist help set up the stage? So he's like, yeah, I'll bring the guys. And then he doesn't turn up because he's on an anniversary, which is like, they described it as Diaspro having an anniversary for basically everything, which is like, even Sky's friends don't like Diaspro. Like, why are these guys dating? They need to explain it at least. There's like a lot of music, Riven stuff happening here. Like, she's like, I don't even know if he likes me. And then when he sees her singing, his eyes like glow and stuff. And then they catch him playing Muse's song on the guitar. Just like, it's cool that they have similar interests. And like, to be fair, Ribbon x Muse was probably my favourite ship because it was the most like, it wasn't like, because all the other ones were like, oh, we like each other, now we're together. It had like a bit of drama. But I feel kind of indifferent to this series as a whole, so yeah. Vexius pretends to be a music producer and he's trying to get Bloom alone, but she's like, no, this is Muse's day, why would I go alone with you? Which, facts. Muse's family lore is dropped, so basically her mum's dead and she wants to make her father proud because they're broke. So that's why she wants to become a successful musician, because her mum was also a successful musician. The Tricks attack Muse and Bloom, and Ribbon steps in to save them. Muse has stage fright, which is a bit weird. I'm not sure, I mean, I think she was definitely nervous in the OG series, but like, she had been performing for a while at that point because that's kind of her like cool thing, and it's one of her favorite things to do. But anyways, Ribbon just comes hovering in and starts playing like the guitar, and then that gives her like some confidence, and then they sing like into each other's eyes. And I was like, okay, not them making a like cute couple instead of like a weird toxic couple, but yeah. And Diaspro and Sky are in the crowd. I thought they were on a date together, but apparently they can turn up. And Diaspro shows Bloom a ring to be like, wow, we got like engaged or whatever. Then Vexius gets Bloom alone, and then he tries to steal the Dragon Flame, but a force prevents him from doing that. They all team up against Vexius, and then he knocks out all the specialists, then all the Winx. But then the headmistresses show up, which like, this happened a lot in the OG series, but like, there was like, really serious battles going on, then the headmistresses would just show up and like deal with it very easy. It's like, why weren't you paying attention to your students more? Like, Ribbon's like actually nice in this. Like, experienced Whiplash because he was such a little weirdo in the OG series. But yeah, all the Winx sing together, but like Bloom's at the center and she's like being the main singer. Which, to be fair, this happened in the OG series again, because in season 4 they form a band. Season 4 was so weird because they became teachers, then they went to Earth. Then they decided they wanted to run a pet shop, but then they decided they want to be like singers. But anyways, like this has happened before, but like it's like you're stealing the music thing. Not saying that they all can't like music, but it just seems odd that out of nowhere Bloom can sing while Musa literally is her actual like ability. Sky and Bloom are literally like flirting, and he has a girlfriend. Like, what the hell? Like in this scene, she's like, "Oh, I saw you gave Diaspora a nice ring." He's like, "She got it for herself. It doesn't mean anything to me." Like, why are you leading Bloom on? Well, I know it's not leading her on because they are gonna end up together, but like, dump her if you don't like her. Episode 9, the simulation exam episode. Again, this isn't as good as the OG simulation episode, where Bloom like learns a lot about her fears and stuff. If you don't remember, it shows all the Winx's fears, which is a nice addition to all their characters. But like, simulation episode was just a very memorable one from the OG series, so it seems weird to kind of wreck on it. But anyways, I'll get into what actually happens. So it's confirmed that the dragon flame can't be stolen, it must be given willingly. Like, instead of seeing Bloom on like her home planet of Domino and facing mild family law, as well as Kiko dying since Kiko doesn't exist, that can't happen obviously. She is shown that she's scared of hurting the people close to her with like her powers, because they're out of control. It's nice that they showed this, but I was expecting like a whole lore drop, like in the original series. Stella's scared of not being taken seriously as like the heir to Celeria, which I think is a really good addition to her character, considering no one takes her seriously and she kind of acts in a way where she doesn't want to be taken seriously. She acts as like a comical character. As well as this, we find out that her dad's literally very war hungry and that he would rather have a son than her, which is like, okay, he sucks. I forgot to mention earlier in the series, it's confirmed that her parents don't want anything to do with each other. In the OG series, they are divorced. It's not like explicitly mentioned, but it is implied in this season. Flora is scared of not being able to like save the environment. Techno is afraid of being perceived as like not human, like she's kind of having an imposter syndrome. She's afraid that people would judge her for the way she is. Musa is scared of failing her father, and this is kind of touched on before. She wants to become successful so that her father can afford to live. Aisha is scared of shaming her parents, and by this I mean like not living up to their expectations basically. Like, most of the fears are pretty similar, but the way they like materialize themselves are different. Tricks all go into the simulation together because they're like, oh, we're scared of nothing. And for different reasons, all the Tricks are scared of the other members of the Tricks betraying them. Damien leaves because he doesn't want his like fears to be seen, but then he goes back on his own for some reason to see his fears. Which is stupid because earlier the teacher's like, I have to be behind the controls, otherwise it's dangerous. So why would you face your fears when he can actually get you? Like, what? And Damien is scared of disappointing his father, which isn't shocking. It's nothing we haven't seen before, because in literally every episode he's like, sorry father. The Winx try and save Damien from the simulation, and then whilst in the simulation they all see their fears, so they are struggling a bit. Then Daphne's voice to Bloom is like, you've got to fight your fears, so they all fight their fears, they all overcome their fears, and attack fake Vexius, basically. The Tricks want the Dragon Flame so they can double-cross Vexius and enter into the Omega Dimension, because at this point they don't really trust him because he's kind of working on his own. And Faragonda tells Bloom about the Dragon Flame, so she actually knows what this is about. Episode 10. Bloom tells the Winx about the Dragon Flame, and they're all like, oh, that's crazy, that's so powerful. They all knew what the Dragon Flame was, except from Bloom, obviously. And they all saw her in her evil form use the Dragon Flame. I mean, I guess they did assume it was a legend. Did they not actually see that? Or are they just like stupid and forgot to tell her? So Stella is like talking with Prince Luke. Like she's They've met online, so sketchy, and this whole, like, the whole message of this episode is, like, about online safety, and they see some, like, really valid points. So, like, yeah, this would be... Which makes me think that the target audience is, like, tweens. Because they're all, like, don't go meet him alone, we'll all track your location, you should bring an adult with you, so they are saying, like, valid points. So I'm like, that was a pretty decent message for this episode. Stella is worried to date Brandon because he's not a prince, and she doesn't want to disappoint her parents, so that's why she wants to go on a date with Prince Luke. Basically, Prince Luke is obviously suspicious. He's like too good to be true. He's like helping animals and stuff. So Stella's really upset because she has to reject Brandon now because she's going on a date with Luke. So she wants Bloom to reject Brandon for her, but instead Bloom's like, Stella's going on a date, do you want to stalk her with me, which is a bit weird. But it was a good thing that they did that because Stella basically gets lured into an alley and then they go into a very, well, they say it's a very exclusive club and that's how she gets tricked into going there. And then Prince Luke actually does show up and he looks sketchy as hell. And then it's basically just them in there, so, and he starts acting weird, so she does get a bit freaked out. And then he had purple eyes, so I was like, is that Vexius? But it actually was Darcy, so like, what the hell? And the Tricks show up because they want to take the dragon flame. The rest of the Winx and specialists show up to defend her. And what I found a bit crazy was at the end was when Darcy said, it's been fun, especially you, Stella, which like, what the toxic fury is this? After this, they have a party to celebrate like getting Stella back safe, and they talk a lot about like online safety. And then Stella and Brandon make up. She gives him a tiara, like, oh, you'll always be royalty to me, to symbolize like that he will always be royalty to her, and then that she'll love him regardless of his status. And then throughout this whole episode, I forgot to mention Vexius is like, he was like to Damien, I'll train your fire powers, which is like, okay, so you obviously want him to give you his part of the dragon flame, which I'm pretty sure happened in this episode at the end. It's very heavily implied, but it's only like discussed 2 episodes later. Episode 11, Bloom basically does this really complicated test and she passes it. Like, there's a lot of things I haven't mentioned, like most of the classes, because they are quite irrelevant, but they do take up a large portion of the episodes. Which obviously I understand why that's there, because they are in school, so at the end of the day they do have to have like lessons and stuff, but like, yeah, not much to it. The Tricks break into Red Fountain because they're told to by Vexius, which is like, I thought they weren't working for him at this point. But anyways, they're suspicious of him because they're like, why do you have to break the security? But they do it anyways. Bloom wants to learn self-defense because she's really wary with all the things happening. And with her hearing the voice of Daphne, she doesn't really know what's going on. So Robin is teaching them self-defense. Then Robin has to leave because Red Fountain security is taken down. Vexius basically destroys the Red Fountain. Throughout this whole episode, they try to stop him, they can't really. They realise that he has the dragon flame. So they're like, how did that happen? Obviously it's Damien's dragon flame, but they don't know that yet. They realise that Vexius is Damien's father. Paladin, who is their teacher of Red Fountain, tries to defeat Vexius, but then he gets thrown into the Omega Dimension, which is like where all these like high security prisoners are, which you're not meant to be able to get back from, but we know that you can, considering they've gone there in the OG series. Throughout this episode, Sky's kind of upset because he feels inadequate and that he couldn't like save Paladin. And before he was like doing weightlifting, and then Brandon beat him and he was like, oh, I'm inadequate. So he is pretty upset. And Diaspora's like, why weren't you talking to me? It was really embarrassing. People were saying you were like not doing well when people were saying you might be hurt when Red Fountain was being attacked. It was really embarrassing for me, which is like, Diaspora, could you be any more irritating? They didn't need to make her this evil. Like, I don't know. So I wrote that he broke up with her, but it wasn't really like that. He was just like angry with her. They didn't like officially break up, but it's kind of implied. Bloom blames herself for the dragon flame being gone because she doesn't realise that Damien also has a piece of the dragon flame. So she's like, how did Vexius get my dragon flame? It's my fault. Then Daphne's voice says, come find me, to Bloom. Okay, episode 12. Bloom's missing, so the Winx want to go and find her. Obviously we know she's looking for Daphne. They find Bloom's location basically by figuring out where they think Vexius would go next, because he will be following Bloom obviously to get the dragon flame. So then they announce the existence of Light Rock Fortress, which only the pure part can enter, so obviously protagonist can enter. And then inside there's a weird android which basically gives Bloom a tour of the place. And this is basically the Domino Lore episode, which again, quite a memorable episode in the early seasons. To be fair, it's more picturesque than the other like lore episodes in this season, but it definitely doesn't compare to the OG series. I just think I really don't like the art style. I really prefer the 2D one. Anyways, this android makes Bloom face trials, so she thinks her friends are in danger and she basically like has to be brave, self-sacrificial and stuff. Bloom finds Daphne and she drops a law. Well, she doesn't say you're my sister. She doesn't like tell her who her parents are, so she is a bit confused. When Daphne tells Bloom that she has a twin who is Damien, she's like, oh, that's crazy, but also they're both ginger and have blue eyes, it was by her powers, it was kind of obvious. She was like, oh, why would my parents never tell me? Like, she still doesn't understand that she's adopted. Daphne didn't even tell her that they were related. There is a little sequence when Bloom looks at herself in the mirror and then looks at a statue of her mother and she's like, oh, we look similar, but she doesn't really say anything about it. But anyways, Vexius tells Damien that the dragon flame has always belonged to their family and that Bloom's family stole half of the dragon flame. So that's how he convinces him to be on his side. Vexius, like, whenever Damien like goes out blind, he kind of evilizes him. And then they go to the Light Rock Fortress as well. The Tricks show up. They're about to attack the Winx, but then they're like, what's the actual point? Because they are just kind of waiting there for Vexius to get out so they can get their payment. So they don't fight. When Bloom finds out that she's twins with Damien, she is like a little scared for a minute because she's like, I could be related to Vexius. But then Daphne's like, Vexius is not your father. So they're like, okay, so Damien's real father is not Vexius. Vexius attacks like the spirit version of Daphne and Bloom. Episode 13, which is the final episode. The Winx save Bloom from Vexius, and Bloom basically spills the tea. She's like, that's crazy, Damien's related to you. And then Flora's like, that makes sense because there's good in him. Like, I don't think you inherit that, but correct me if I'm wrong. Throughout the last episode, the teachers were also looking for something, probably where they were searching for Vexius in Cloud Tower, basically. But the only people in Cloud Tower were Tricks, really, so they didn't really find anything. So they get trapped while doing that. And the Winx look for a spellbook in the library to get the other half of the dragon flame off Damien, because at this point it's confirmed that Vexius has taken Damien's dragon flame. Well, I forgot to mention that the reason they both have the dragon flame is because they're twins. It doesn't normally happen that it can be split. Which, like, the lost twin trope is just a bit stereotypical. I don't know why they put it in. There was already a lot of stereotypical tropes. It felt a bit unnecessary and it was very obvious from the start, obviously. I was gonna say, as a twin this offends me, but it doesn't really. She's like, oh, I can feel like I know him. Like, that's always the thing with the missing twins. It's just like, oh, I felt like I knew you. You're not actually connected, you are just two different people. I mean, I'm sure their powers connected in some way. And to be fair, it is pretty obvious when someone is related to you. You can probably tell that they look like you. But anyways, that's enough about that. And then they realise to give Damien his dragon flame back, they have to convince him that he wants it back. So basically they can't force him to take it back. Which makes sense, considering it was the same the other way around. They have to cause mistrust between Damien and Vexius. So Bloom tells Damien that they're twins and that Vexius is not his father, and he doesn't believe her because he's like being manipulated basically. Bloom uses the dragon flame, which gives her like a new transformation outfit, which is probably one of the best ones. And it kind of looks like the Valkyrie set. I'm probably only saying that because there's like golden aspects added onto it. Flora tries to convince Damien not to do it because obviously they like each other, and she gets her trying to convince Damien. After seeing this like makes Damien lose trust in Vexius because he hurts Flora, so they're able to give his dragon flame back. Vexius ends up destroying the fortress, and Damien ends up leaving with Vexius, like I said, because he is being manipulated. And the Winx are kind of scared because they realise that Flora can't fly because she got like pretty hurt, but then the specialists pick them up so they're fine. The Tricks confront Vexius. They're like, you've got the dragon flame now, give us the staff. And he's like, you didn't give me the dragon flame, so yeah. Which, like, that's true, they didn't really help, they caused a lot of trouble. But it must feel bad for them because they are just going out their way to call, like, they almost got expelled multiple times just to get something. But then he breaks the staff to the Omega Dimension, so like this really angers them. So they go back to Cloud Tower and end up freeing the teachers just to spite Vexius. When they return, Winx are like congratulated like heroes, and I didn't realize this was the last episode, so it's like, okay, a bit weird, is there not another episode? Apparently that was beating Vexius. When they didn't really do that, he just kind of went away with Damien. It didn't feel like a win at all. And I swear he still had half the dragon flame because Damien had it, but maybe I interpreted that wrong. Anyways, they're happy that they won, but then they're like, oh, Damien is still under the control of Vexius in the end, so it's not really the end. I'm pretty sure this will get resolved in another season. If another season comes out, I'll probably talk about it on this podcast, if you're interested, but it felt like a very underwhelming end to that end of the 13th episode. Overall, the art style, really not my thing. They look very uncanny valley, and I think that's most likely because of the use of AI. Maybe I'm kind of biased because I'm against AI, but they will look very chopped, and when they talk, it just looks very off. You get kind of used to it. It's very reminiscent of other Winx things, and a lot of plot lines that happened in the OG series do happen, just sliced up and changed. So some of the changes I find are like quite interesting. Like I was like, there's no point to do that. They kind of watered down a lot of the stories because like Muse's backstory was like so devastating. You see her mum die on stage and her have to deal with being a musician when her father doesn't want her to be because that's how her mother died, but instead it's just like, my dad is broke and I want to be a musician like my mother so we can be successful, which is still a good backstory, but it's not as hard hitting. I think one of the best inclusions was Aisha. I feel I'm not saying that she's the best out of them, but I'm glad that she's in the first season because they introduced her later on and it was kind of like hard to integrate her into the group. I'm upset that they didn't make the Tricks the main villains because like they kind of set them up as the main villains in the early episodes of this season, and then it's like, oh, evil man again. I thought they'd at least reuse an old villain, but now it's just like there's a new guy. This kind of upsets me because the first season was like the witches, like they want to go against the fairies, like the witches cause a whole war against the fairies and they destroy Red Fountain, and it is like big stakes. And the dragon flame isn't even mentioned. They're like, oh, they're like, oh, Bloom's kind of powerful, but at this point it's not mentioned. But also I feel like they've set it up so that there's a main villain for this whole like new reboot series, because for the OG Winx it was like there's a new main antagonist every season, but the Tricks are kind of constant like forces against them as well, so having an ongoing villain is probably quite interesting. I think it's a good thing because otherwise they would have to basically set up a new villain having the same goal, basically to steal the dragon flame, so it makes sense for them not to outright defeat him. I found it weird that they acted like they did defeat him when they achieved basically nothing. Like plot-wise, it's not the worst thing ever. Like the plot of Winx has never been like that crazy good. I've only rewatched it for like nostalgia, but like the later seasons I couldn't watch because it's really repetitive. So like it's not the worst thing ever. Like it's not slop. A lot of people have been saying that it's like really bad, and like I understand that the first episode is like diabolical. Like the pacing is so bad. Like too many things happen. And I feel like that happens in a lot of shows. The best parts are really references to the old seasons, and I feel like some of the episodes had like good messages, like the online safety one, and yeah, by showing the fears of the different members of the Winx Club, they developed like the characters a lot more, because before it was just like very Bloom focused, and this is a very Bloom focused series. The reboot is very Bloom focused as well as like, oh, they're always after the dragon flame, which like felt a bit extreme, because in season 1, like in the original season 1, she doesn't know she has a dragon flame yet, and she finds out. It becomes a big major like plot point in season 3, as well as in season 2, when she beats the big bad on her own. Which I don't remember any of the villains' names, that like I said, I call them all old men that the Tricks fawn over basically. So it is a bit jarring to go from not knowing for Bloom, from going not knowing from her going from having no powers at all to having like the ultimate power. I hope at least if they have a season 2 that they have like more transformations like in the original series, like Enchantix. Like the main reason people watched the like a new season was to see their new outfits and new transformations. But like I said, the fashion in the reboot is very underwhelming. Witch discrimination like plotline was only a thing for the first like few episodes. It was like briefly it was mentioned that the witches, their homes were basically, their school was destroyed and now they have to be at this fairy school where they all think they're better than them because witches are all inherently evil even though they're not. They just seem like chill people, except from the tricks, but they're just a bit crazy. And then like within the first episode they destroy like one of the surviving statues from Cloud Tower, which was like crazy, and I understand why the witch head mistress like found that to be like offensive. And then Stella's like always saying like microaggressions. There's like, I know she's always been out of touch like rich girl in the OG series, but like, Stella, I need to like you. Then Flora will say things like, not all witches are bad, but then they don't reflect those in their actions, because then when we think she's a witch, she thinks it's like the end of the world and that she'll be evil, as if that changes her character. Deep down, it feels like they're trying to send a message, but just like half-assing it. Like, the main cast are literally discriminatory against the witches within the first like few episodes, and then they drop that whole like plotline that they never talk about like witches against fairies ever again. Was it the best story ever? No. Was the art good? No. Diabolical honesty. Do I support the AI? Not really. Is it worth watching? Not really. I'd recommend you watch the OG seasons instead of watching this one, because like I said, the same plotlines happen but better. This podcast episode was me trying to react to the Winx reboot without like facing copyright basically. So that's why I basically said the whole plot of what happened. I obviously missed a lot of things out. If you want to watch it, it is on Netflix and BBC iPlayer as well. Thanks for watching. If you're listening on Spotify, I have a YouTube channel, so go subscribe to that. I also have a Twitter. I barely post on it, but I'll talk about what videos I'm going to post over there. I post shorts on TikTok as well, so please follow me there. Anyways, thanks for watching.